So the first question is, what is this report about?
Yeah, this report is the final report of the Open Science Policy Platform, and the Open Science Policy Platform was a group of stakeholders in order to have the voice of stakeholders on open science development in Europe. And in the report, we sort of sum up what has been done in the first and in the second mandate period of the Open Science Policy Platform. And more specifically, we have concentrated on what are called the practical commitments for implementation, or so-called PCIs, by the different stakeholders organizations. So we've looked at what action areas did we propose in the OSPP recommendations at the end of the first term of the OSPP, and what has been done by the different stakeholder organizations to sort of implement these recommendations that were made at the end of the first phase. And this report sums up what actions has been done, and it gives a further call to action in order to get to a shared research knowledge system in 2020, in 2030, after this period of OSPP.
Thank you very much. So what are the main findings?
Yeah, findings is maybe not the right word, but if you would put it in the phrase and framing of findings, is that if I look back as a person, more than I had expected has been done by the different stakeholder organizations towards further developments of open science. And for me, open science has three main lines. One is open access for publications. The other one is fair data in order to have a system for data sharing and exchange and interoperability specifically. And third is citizen science. And these three can only work if a number of boundary conditions are fulfilled. If we have the right skills, especially in the domain of data, if we have the right incentives and reward systems in place, and if we have some monitoring in order to monitor the progress, so some metrics in order to measure this. And if you look at those, let's say 6 dimensions, 3 developments and 3 boundary conditions, then you see that these stakeholder organizations have been doing more than I had expected, let's say 4 years ago, with respect to the items mentioned in the recommendations by OSPP after its first mandate period. So if you call that a finding, okay, then this is a finding, but for me, this means that the movement of open science, at least in Europe, but I believe it's broader than that, is really taking place. Of course, it's not going as fast as we hope and as some people think it should, but this is the way things are developing. The coordination could be better. If I look at what has been done and is being done, and then I of course, specify a little bit the EOSC, the European Open Science Cloud, where I know most of. I think we would have been quite a bit further if that coordination over the countries in this particular domain of EOSC, but it holds also for other domains, would have been better. And I hope with the new governance structure of EOSC, we will get there.
No, and that leads in a bit to the next question as well, excusing the word findings, but are there any surprising findings, or are there any surprising parts of this report, you would say?
Yeah, well, basically, I think I've given that answer with saying that findings is maybe not the right term here, but the things that surprised me, as I said, is that the developments are more steady and more stable than I would have expected 4 years ago, and need more coordination.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. What should our association, so CSAR, do in light of this report?
Read it. That's the first thing they should do. That's worthwhile reading material. As I have mentioned several times, is based on the set of recommendations made by OSPP. And I think this was a useful set of recommendations 2 years ago. And they should ask themselves, as a research performing organization, one of the stakeholders, what am I doing in this particular domain of the recommendations? And where did I look at these recommendations and did I follow them? So I think for many of our organizations in CSR, these recommendations hold quite valuable material if you want to stimulate open science developments in your university. So first look at the recommendations again from 2 years ago, and then you can find in the report what has been reached so far, and then you have a sort of reference framework for your university to see, well, what has been reached in general and where are we as University X with respect to the developments that are wanted or are needed. So in this sense, I would recommend all of our organizations to read the report, look at the recommendations of 2 years ago again, but they're basically also in this report, and then decide where are we relative to the rest of the stakeholders.
So now, thank you. That answers the last question quite nicely as well. So just to repeat, our association, we continue to engage on this topic, and then our leaders and experts that are members, they can take inspiration and compare and read the report, its recommendation, and take inspiration from the progress that has been made the last 2 years, and see a bit where they as individual member institutions can progress as well in these different areas.
Yes, that's a good summary, Mattias.
Great. So those were just my quick questions on the final OSPP report. Thank you very much, Karel.
Yeah,